Hey everybody, and welcome back to Inclusive Design 2024, brought to you in partnership with our Platinum supporters, Barrier Break and Intopia, as well as our Gold supporters, InfoAxia and Tetralogical. You can follow us on LinkedIn, on Mastodon, and on Twitter. And if you have questions for the presenters, post them using the ID24 hashtag, that is # ID24. Or you can use the YouTube chat. We'll be gathering the questions you ask for our Q&A period at the end of our session. A reminder that ID24 is a respectful community and that you can find our code of conduct on the Inclusive Design 24 website, which is inclusivedesign24.org. I am very happy now to be joined by my guest host, Dave. And yeah, Dave, that said, over to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dave. And next we have Erika Menczigar talking about trauma-informed design, an overlooked aspect of inclusive design. Over to you, Erika.
Hi, everyone, and good evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are in the world. Really happy to join you today. This is my first online talk. I've done this talk many times before on the stage, and I just shared with the organizers it's not even a little bit less nerve-wracking. But here we are. But super excited to share this sort of knowledge with you. And I know last year you also had trauma-informed research session, which was really good. However, today I'm going to try to highlight different aspects of it. So I hope it will add to your knowledge base. So who am I? Again, my name is Erika, and I'm based in London, in the UK, where I arrived 12 years ago from Hungary. And in terms of my career, I have a master's degree in psychology. And I spent 10 years in mental health care and services in different settings. And a couple of years ago, I pivoted to user research, UX research. So probably now it gives you an understanding of how trauma and psychology and mental health met my new profession. And it's actually, very exciting how I managed to connect them. And even I'm doing UX research, user experience research, mental health, trauma, psychology. It's my passion. It's my main interest outside of work. Not to mention the fact that, as many of us, I'm also impacted by trauma myself, and I'm a big fan and advocate for therapy. I strongly believe if all of us had access to therapy, this world would look very, very differently. And emotional intelligence is an asset which is not utilized enough in this world. So I'm also here to raise awareness around that and, of course, trauma. But before we get into it, I need to give you a serious content warning. As I mentioned, I am going to talk about trauma and many related adverse life events, and in details later on, miscarriage and fertility difficulties. I am not a first-time presenter about this topic, and I do get people coming to me or messaging me after this that, however amazing it was a bit shocking. And they made some discoveries about themselves and their lives. So I apologize for that in advance, but it can also have a good impact later on anybody's life, even about themselves and relatives and friends. But it can be intense from time to time. And yeah, just a trigger warning, I will give that out later as well before I get into the miscarriage and fertility issues bit. So the big question, what is trauma? And this sentence, I'm traumatized, I keep hearing it a lot these days. It's very fashionable, and unfortunately it's misused, if you ask me as a professional, because people keep saying it, even if, I don't know, there was a big queue at a coffee shop or something like that, like, oh my God, I'm traumatized because of this and that. And I know the awareness around trauma is significantly more than it used to be. However, it's not fair on people who are severely affected by it. So I'd like to clarify that before we define what trauma is. So trauma is an event of series. Sorry, I just need to move my slides a bit. So trauma is an event of series or an events that leave the victim scarred and shattered as their physical and psychological safety is damaged or threatened. And this is a mixture of my two favorite authors in the topic, Gabor Maték and another Hungarian professional, and Bessa van der Kolk. And somehow I mixed their view on this one. Again, just 1 second. So what gets damaged here or threatened? Again, our safety, our hope, and our trust in the world and other people, even just for short term or long term. Very important to acknowledge that there is a difference between traumatic events and being traumatized, because if somebody is a part of a traumatic event or witnesses one, it doesn't mean they are going to be traumatized by them. And I will elaborate on that very soon. So important to remember, people do react differently to trauma types. Very hard work to distinguish between traumas these days, but there are two main categories. There is the one you might more aware of, which is simple or type 1 or acute trauma. These are one-off events, or maybe they happen more in throughout the lifetime, but they are very well defined. They have a beginning and they have an end. And being a part of it, witnessing or experiencing it, unfortunately, we have a solid 40 to 60% of chance that we all going to see or experience that. So what are these? What are the concrete examples? So these are attacks, sexual assault, accidents, natural disasters, medical events, war service, emergency service, losses of any kind, relationship, work, money, all sorts of losses, even pets. If we lose our pets, could be very traumatizing for some people. Moving countries, moving houses, leaving your home. If you have to, for example, downsizing massively, also I would say, especially in the recent financial difficulties we are all experiencing. Again, rejections of any kinds, partnership, friendships, work, and very importantly, witnessing trauma could also have an impact on us, an impact on you. Then opposing to that is complex or type 2 or chronic trauma, which is regular and reoccurring. It doesn't have an end at the beginning and an end, so undefined length and severity as well. And these are the examples of them. Again, war, I mean, not specifically war service, but that could be also that, but experiencing war, which is happening around the world, bullying, anywhere, from home, from school, from work, chronic illnesses that have a long-term impact on people, constant abuse from anyone around us. If it's prolonged and reoccurring and regular, it has a really massive detrimental impact. Neglect, witnessing abuse, again, regularly, poverty. And I got 4 other categories, which is generational trauma. It's now a scientific fact that it can be passed on by genes. For example, Jewish children tend to have a lot more physical and mental health issues than the general public. Relational trauma, which I am going to go into details later, when it's somebody from our close family. Vicarious trauma again, emergency medical service providers, carers can have that, and collective trauma, all the isms, racism, sexism, LGBTQ population and groups, or things like COVID, which we all experienced, and again, recessions, which is again a current state of affair. So these are the main trauma types. Now, these are the implications and prevalence I tried to collect for you. Simple type 1 acute trauma can result in post-traumatic stress disorder. Another name is PTSD. I'm sure many of you have heard of it. And PTSD has been in the Bible of psychiatry and psychology, which is the DSM, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorder book, from quite some time. So it means it's quite well understood, researched, and there's so many treatments out there for it. What's the prevalence? So as I mentioned, 40 to 60% of us will experience trauma, but PTSD will develop around between 10 and 20% in the whole population. And an interesting data from the UK, where I live, it went up to 17.5% post-COVID. And this statistic will be updated very soon by the PTSD UK. Now, for complex chronic type 2 trauma, there is a medical consequence for that, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, another name C-PTSD. What's interesting about it, that when I gained my qualification 12 years ago, a master's in psychology, I wasn't taught about it. It's so new. It's just getting out there. It's that new that it's not in the DSM. Therefore, research is ongoing. Science is really trying its best to bring to the knowledge that it is a very complex, very difficult psychological and neurobiological condition. And it has the impact on, we don't know how many of us are affected. It's 100% sure that it's higher than PTSD. And you will see, if I get into details, why I think, and why so many of the professionals think that. But unfortunately, research, we just don't know. Research doesn't know. And people who suffer from it don't acknowledge it, don't realize it, maybe never, and they will not come forward for treatment, for help, unless they end up in a hospital. As you can see, 50% of the mental health institutions occupiers do have that, and refugees in a very, very high number, 30% of them are experiencing it. And the big questions, the whys. So why some people are going to develop PTSD or C-PTSD and why won't? Well, if you ever studied psychology or heard about it, or sociology or anything like that, there's a big debate, and it's hard to decide whether it's genetics or environment, but mainly we say it's both. The factors from genetics and environmental factors both have a very strong role. If they're going to develop or not, which has more in it, we don't know. But as again with everything, they work together. Unfortunately, as women, we have a higher likelihood of developing them. Please do not ask me to know all about these genes and molecules and hormones. I collected it for you, but feel free to do your research. We have women this higher hormone level, which is more responsive to stress. This other gene, the FKBP5 gene, people have different genotypes of this gene, and it determines our stress response. And you might say it's controversial being overly aggressive and having depressive tendencies, but they are not far from each other. So that's responsible for it. And this other serotonin transporter gene, which was discovered, which is responsible for regulating emotional responses to stress. So if somebody has a short allele type of that, they are more prone to develop PTSD or C-PTSD. And again, on the environmental side of things, just like with everything and with every psychological condition, a lot depends on our support system. Family, relational, financial. Obviously, if you are or were adopted or you have to leave your home because of a war, that itself, it's not a good indication of a healthy living environment. So that will add to the likelihood of developing PTSD or C-PTSD. And resilience and psychological immune system, which is up to that close familiar environment, your family, your friendship circle, your co-workers you are surrounded by. And with complex C-PTSD, now the science has this very strong opinion that adverse childhood experiences, which is I'll get into that in a minute. It's a scale. You can get points on it. This is the worst things to collect points on it. I have to say, will contribute to develop C-PTSD, and then or later on abuse in adulthood, which is again prolonged and long-term ongoing. So the types of adverse childhood experiences, I'm not sure if many of us or many of you have seen this or met with this, but these are the ACEs, and the higher points you get from this, the more likely you are going to experience complex PTSD. So the type of them is abuse, which can be physical, emotional, or sexual. Neglect, very important neglect. I'm going to elaborate on that in a minute. Physical or emotional neglect, and it does not get, they don't get talked about enough. And for example, but with household dysfunction like violence, substance use, parental separation, mental illnesses with the parents, or victim of bullying or war or community violence, they kind of, you would think, yeah, they are very obvious that it will not have a good impact on anyone. And that's why I'd love to raise awareness how physical and emotional neglect or abuse is just as important. Because childhood trauma is also the following. So I hope you can see this well, but I'm going to read them out. So if a parent is denying the child's reality and dismissing their emotions, if the child is feeling invisible and neglected, and again, it's not what the parent says, it's how the child feels. If someone is being constantly criticized and compared non-stop throughout a lifetime up until they are adult and beyond that, again, it's not a great and healthy environment. If a child is being screamed and yelled at, especially for normal mistakes a child does, just, I don't know, spilling something out or crying and things like that. If, again, a big one, if a child is being told, even either directly or indirectly, they can't or shouldn't experience certain emotions. If a parent who is hyper-focused on a child's appearance, physical one, and beyond that, and I do hear that and I see that when mothers and fathers are criticizing their grown-ups children's appearance. If a parent cannot regulate their emotions due to anything, due to their own mental health issues, it will be scary for a child, and which is worse, they will not learn how to regulate their own emotions, which will have an impact their own relationships later on. If a child is constantly being humiliated, not accepted for who they are, And now we here with disabilities and neurodiversity. Sometimes it is coming from genetics, but the environment will bring it out this way because we are just not accepted that we are different and we process information, and we are not a quiet child who is just happy to play on the floor for 3 hours. And parents who prioritize themselves over the children's needs. So these are extremely important. And if you think if somebody has great background, wonderful financial background, education, what a beautiful family, they have everything. If they experience any of these or many of these, that is just as traumatizing and will have an impact on their lives. Now down to the brain, because as I kept mentioning, it's a neural biological issue now. Some people call it a brain injury, and because our brain, people's brain with serious trauma is different, it is developing differently, and it will be affected. So as it says on the picture, trauma can alter the structure and functioning of the brain. And these are the 3 main parts of the brain that can get affected. The prefrontal cortex does shrink, and this area is responsible for mood and emotion regulation and rational thinking. The hippocampus also shrinks, and this is the area which is responsible for differentiating between the past and the present. So that means if something triggers trauma in our everyday life, we will think that is happening right now or just a threat of something. We cannot differentiate between past and present. And also the amygdala is a big area for how we respond to stress. And it is overreactive, as you can now imagine. And again, as we shift into UX design in a minute, now you can start to understand that all these problems, all these differences in our brain will cause higher order processes like problem solving to become under functioning, while other processes get towards defense become overreactive. So let's just imagine I use a session when you are on the spotlight, you don't want to be there, but you are, and you have all these issues. You will feel agitated. You might feel under a lot of stress because of all this. And there are some neurochemical effects as well. Could be increased dopamine level, increased arousal, pulse, blood pressure by responding and thinking to memories, and decreased serotonin level, which is our natural anxiety relief hormone and system. Okay, and what are the symptoms later on and throughout our lives after experiencing trauma or being traumatized for a long time? So this is just one collection of them, such as hopelessness, decreased concentration that I mentioned, insomnia, numbing, loss of interest, irritability, depression, suicidal thoughts, dissociation, hypervigilance, memory issues, nightmares, flashbacks, intrusive thoughts and memories, starter response, shame and self-hatred, panic attacks, emotional overwhelm, chronic pain, headaches, eating disorders, substance abuse, and the list goes on. It's not great. Again, science has still a lot more to do in terms of proving, but many professionals say that bipolar, other issues such as ADHD, autistic traits can fall under this condition called complex C-PTSD, complex PTSD. Also, those were just the medical terms, but how else can you or anybody recognize if the trauma shows up later in their lives? Apart from mental health issues such as OCD, anxiety, depression, there will be the other things such as trust issues, fear of abandonment, unhealthy coping mechanism, being a workaholic, having multiple relationships at the same time, and so on, constantly feeling that you're not enough, you're being a perfectionist, you are being a people pleaser, anger issues, very, very big part of is not being able to regulate emotions and stress. Toxic, as I mentioned, perfectionism, and chronic guilt and shame. Treatment now, the word is not lost. Treatments are getting better year by year, and I can speak from my own experience that I spent years in talking therapy, which were not effective, and now today I know why, because again, it's something in the brain and deeply rooted there. But if you want to suggest it to someone or you are affected yourself, always go and only go for trauma informed therapies, be it cognitive therapy and somatic therapies. I can really recommend, because these trauma is stored in our bodies as well. And it can have a lot of manifestations, such as, I don't know, some chronic illnesses, like physical conditions. It's always important to look after our bodies. But there are two groundbreaking treatments out there, which is EMDR, that stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And as you can see in this picture, it does change things in our brain. It does heal them. And brain spotting is coming from EMDR. It's a more evolved version of that. And what it does, basically, it does stimulate bilateral structures in your brain. So you will access memories a lot easier. And then in the second part of the therapy sessions, it helps restructuring, rewriting memories. And again, I wish I didn't waste years in talking therapy when I was not using these ones, but these are absolutely wow. So I can really recommend them. Okay, quick summary before getting into design, and we are over the harder part. So trauma is be it acute PTSD or C-PTSD, is a kind of brain injury because it causes neurobiological and neurohormonal changes in you and in everyone, and it will affect our cognitive functions, stress, dealing with stress, decision-making, problem-solving, and memory issues. And this is how we get to user experience, because we want and need our users to complete tasks on our websites and with our products, and they will have an emotional experience and memory connected to with whatever we have and with whatever we're gonna sell them. So this is why it's important. And again, just highlighting it in line with everybody else today, disabilities, neurodiversity, and trauma are not edge cases anymore. So many of us are impacted. Again, with C-PTSD, we don't know how many of us, but it must be high. And again, this is our users and our co-workers we are working with. Okay, now the examples of UX design. Inconsiderate triggering or aware, again related to trauma. So in the last couple of years, you can hear my voice go a bit better, because so it's a hard topic, and I hope everybody is all right online. And please do find me again if you have any questions. So who had a good job in terms of being aware of trauma, and where are the products and design elements that need a lot to do? There is this wonderful white paper I discovered not long ago, and they have the following examples. For example, disabled people, they are considered security risk at airports because something, beeps, and the body, and if we are, sometimes body sizes can be problems. So that's already kind of harmful. Facial recognition technologies still not very trauma friendly. They have the average type, and if somebody differs from it, it could be a failure. Accessible websites, we hear about this all day long. It is a statistic from 2022. It was under 3%, and even it's a legal requirements. I don't know where the numbers are still and why. Low cost, there's another example. There was a low-cost healthcare search website which only worked on mobile or maybe not even that, but it gave blank PDFs. It was crashing and all the contact info was hidden. It's not great. Also, an energy assistance program was only available on laptops, and some people might not have access to them. And a violence victim website, the language terminologies were postgraduate level, and again, no one-touch click to call service. And I would like to refer to my dear friend and colleague Michael Kubedi, who has extensive research about, for example, what does spoken English sounds like to Siri and Alexa? How are they differentiating between our accents? And also word is a big thing. What gets to be defaulted when we write down names, and why my name or anybody else's name that is not a typical British name gets shows us as a mistake. But now to my own little examples from life. So I'm going to have a gradual curve here, because some of them are funny like this. For example, what can trigger you? So this function that is not an old one, unsent messages. It is a great function, I have to say. However, why do I have to know? Why do we have to know if somebody deleted the message? And let's just imagine we are in a fight, or there's a breakup, and now somebody reaches out, but oh no, they are retracting. It can mess with people. So. But yeah, it could be just a funny one. However, my next favorite one is this one. So this is my Uber app, and every time I open it, there is this address on the top, and that is related to an ex-partner. And I haven't used this address for almost 2 years, and it's still there, and there's absolutely no way of removing it. And again, it could be funny, it's fine, there's no hard feelings there. However, what if it was an abusive relationship? Again, it's a hospital. What if somebody visited their relatives for months on end, and they died, they passed away in a hospital, and they just don't want to get reminded of it? Such an easy feature. Why is it not possible? I don't know. I really don't get it. Another one, it's a big one. I got that from my friends. And LinkedIn, I saw that many people actually raised a voice against it. Duolingo, it's a language learning app, and it's pushing notifications like crazy. I don't have it, but they having these messages of you made you sad, and I feel this way, and I'm getting angry. Shaming, guilt-tripping people, especially with trauma, will not get you where you want to get. And selling things like that cannot be a healthy way. But I also started to hear they are reducing these messages. Next one, very important one. So when we need to fill out forms, there are security questions. And again, somebody like me, I'm working in public sector, so it is important. And many times they're asking about memories and very, very personal information. And these ones can trigger bad experiences. So for example, what was your childhood nickname? It might be a bullying one. It might be something you don't want to know or don't want to hear about anymore, don't want to remember. It's just very easy. Ask positive questions. Again, favorite teacher. Maybe a teacher was bullying you. Maybe you didn't have any. Ask positive or neutral questions, which will likely not to trigger any bad memories. Because again, what can happen? It's a forum. Somebody gets frozen. Somebody gets agitated. They will likely to make a mistake. And again, a big one, dealing with deceased people's accounts and photos. This lady just got a really hard time seeing her grandma on Google Maps, and couldn't stop thinking of her and crying. I think we're still not doing a good job in terms of dealing with deceased people's digital data. So much to come forward. On the shorter side, trauma-aware products, there are some, which is good, but still such a long way to go. This is a domestic abuse charity. It is wonderful what they did. I just discovered it a couple of days ago. So first of all, they have this exit website button constantly appearing on the website. So if somebody is getting caught, they can just click it, and this Google, and even if they hover over, this Google picture will appear without clicking on it. So that's great. And they have it up and foremost on their website. I call it abuser spying info. So they will tell women and victims what to do, how to clear their history and so on. So that's just wonderful, and this is absolutely the way to go. And then the next one is, sorry, just a sip of water. The next one is Flow Health app. If you don't know what that is, it's an app that helps women to track their periods and pregnancy and things like that. Very, very popular. And first of all, there is a content warning, and that's very important. Again, my content warning is coming in. Again, if you have fertility and miscarriage experiences recently and you don't want to hear it, this is a time to disengage. So they have the content warning again about pregnancy loss up and front. Then if there was a miscarriage or something like that, you have the option to select that you're no longer pregnant, and but you still want to monitor your period or trying for another baby later on, and you can entirely delete the whole pregnancy that happened and ended up in a traumatic experience, and you won't need to be reminded of that again. That's just, again, really, really, really trauma informed, I think. And that was another, again, I'm getting it from people now and friends. Would you like to opt out of Mother's Day emails? Wonderful choice. So many things can be impacted about our relationship with our mothers. Maybe they passed away. It's very traumatic. It's very hard. Or we just don't have a great relationship with them and we don't celebrate it, so we don't want to be reminded of that either. So that's great. And yeah, those are just some examples of design elements. Also, I'm a researcher myself, and I have met very, very difficult with very difficult topics in my careers. For example, we were conducting a research about fertility issues again, about a fertility website. And at some point, a participant said this sentence: a doctor told me just to give up and get a puppy. And yeah, that's not something, first of all, you need to be a very aware researcher and build a good report and say something to this and not just carrying, okay, where do you click next? But what happened after is, it was on a Friday. I had to pull in a colleague who was not involved with this project. Just, oh, can you just, or it wasn't me, it was my senior. And we have a very close relationship. And on Monday, he came back and told me that he couldn't think of anything else but this sentence and this lady and the whole fertility issues. And turns out somebody in his close environment were going through fertility treatments and unsuccessfully. So yeah, you don't know what the people next to you, your colleagues, your co-workers, not to mention your users, are going through. So always make sure you have space for each other. And luckily we did, and we had a good chat about it. And again, luckily there's so much, and we had this session last year where the lady had a lot of info about trauma-informed research. and how to conduct that. These are my own collections, which are very aligned with that. So awareness, at least have one trauma-informed team member in your team, and be culturally aware. If you have people from different backgrounds as users, and they have a request, you can provide somebody similar, a safe person or the gender, do that. With engagement, keep time, read the nonverbal cues, definitely be open and honest about why the research is happening. Inform people. Sometimes we had so many people on a call. Do introduce, do tell them, because they, as I said, they can feel under a lot of pressure and under spotlight when they have research sessions with you. Payments, very important, very, very important. Follow up. It's not their job to chase their money. And yeah, give them choice and flexibility with time and or anything they need. Also, safety and comfort. Give instructions to find locations. Such an important one. I mean, Google Maps is driving me crazy sometimes, and it does add to my anxiety. It's always good to give instructions yourself. Make the doors visible when they enter and if they want to leave as well, and maybe position it close to it if they need to leave, and tell them they can leave anytime. Provide water and let them fidget if they have ADHD or any other attention difficulties. It's completely fine as long as they engage with you. And yeah, again, as us researchers do look after each other and check on each other. And trauma-informed design, basically, when we talk about trauma-informed design and how we should incorporate that into our design, it's not so different from what we should provide to all users. Only ask what's necessary. Be aware of triggering questions and prompts, what I just said. Mobile phones, this is my highlight. Some people only have access to mobile phones. Be aware of that. Make responsive websites. In danger, people sometimes must find the help quickly. Provide it, and be bold with it. And if you have a service such as, I don't know, a delivery service, provide notes, because we know from news it was utilized before when people accessed help throughout those notes and delivery notes. Again, clarity, prices, easy payment option, all the important info visible, and error prevention and recovery. We all know this is basic human-centered design principles and heuristics. Please use them. And thank you for watching. I think I'm right on time. And again, I do encourage you to reach out. Again, it's not a live thing. Don't have an audience here. I would love to hear your opinion. And if you have questions or further needs in terms of trauma-informed design, I'm available. And yeah, looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
That was amazing talk. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences here and for having the ability to be vulnerable and to get such a powerful and important message forward. I know we have a couple questions coming in from the YouTube chat. Dave, would you like to pass along the first one?
Yeah, thanks. First of all, we've got a question from Hannah. She says, "Hi, Erika. Can you talk about algorithms such as social media, Facebook, and things like that that deliver to us memories from the past, and how we might be able to fix something along those lines?"
Again, option, no default. That's my thing, right? Ask the users if they want to receive the memories. I don't know how, but I don't have that on my Facebook. I'm not getting the memories. I don't know what I did right there, but don't assume as a default, right? All of these, as again, I want to receive this sort of emails, that sort of emails. Yeah, wherever you can give options to people, give it. That's just very simple from my point of view.
I kind of agree with you on that. But these social media platforms now have so many different settings and options that you might turn it on at some
Yeah.
point in your life, and
Yeah.
then something might happen and you want to turn that off, and finding those things. So
Absolutely.
I
Oh yeah,
assume
finding, yeah.
making those settings easy to find
Yes,
would be a great
yes,
thing.
yeah. It's just like
Okay.
unsubscribing from Amazon. It's almost impossible to find out.
Oh, tell me
Yeah, all
about it.
those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's why. Yeah.
So our next question comes from Florence. She says, I would like to ask a question about phrasing of content warnings. I've read some articles that suggest a big, bold trigger warning may be harmful. Do we need a different tone for those?
Mhm. Trigger warning, content warning. Is that a question about trigger warning? The word trigger? Did I get it right?
That's difficult for me to say because it's just a
Yeah,
question from the chat. So,
yeah. It's a difficult one, which sometimes I find difficult myself. I am part of groups on social media that has so much trigger warning, and I skip those and skip those. However, I think it's still a better option than not having a trigger warning. Yeah, it's a good point. Which could be better. Again, that's a good research project and a research question, which could be a better option for that. But that's how under research this topic is, that we even don't know how to warn people, and warning is is a right terminology. But yeah, I'm open to receive some ideas from audiences. But yeah, but again, I still think it's better than nothing.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm recalling the example you provided in your talk where gonna put on my UX hat for a second and use some jargon. Like the user is already a little bit primed in that, like they're already in that potential headspace, and so it's a lot more considerate to bring them into something that is potentially traumatic.
Yeah.
And then the language they use is very, very specific. So it's a little bit less of like a blank trigger warning, and then you have to decide if you're like ready to
Yeah.
figure out what that trigger warning speaks to.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Do you think we have time for one more question, or how you feeling?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Fire away. Yeah, really
Okay.
answer.
Yeah. This one's from me, if you're cool with that.
Absolutely.
Um, so the web content accessibility guidelines are relatively vague when it comes to cognitive considerations. And one of the things that you highlighted in your talk is how trauma can manifest as a physical impact on the brain. Um, I guess kind of as an open-ended question, are there things you'd like to see web accessibility standards kind of update to accommodate this fact?
First of all, just to include trauma into those a list of who can be impacted, not just ADHD and visual impairment and all that. I think trauma does belong because of its implication in the brain structures. Again, so much is overlapping with ADHD, for example, like flashing things, not easy to find, very small, very little, very hidden. And honestly, when I was studying UX design and went into accessible design a bit more, like at the end of all of my trainings and readings, like, okay, but that should benefit everyone anyway, right? Like all users. If things are easy to find, easy to deal with, I don't feel stupid, I don't feel useless, whatever, it's good for everyone, regardless. Of course, if somebody has visual impairments and they want to, zoom in or motor needs, and they need not just other resources, that's different. But yeah, just make it easy to use for everyone. Yeah, it's hard to, but yeah, content, it's rather content thing, right? What are you going to say here? What, again, pregnancy, miscarriage? Do you want to still see that info? Do you still want to see your access address on Uber? Are you sure? Can I have a decision about it? So yeah, definitely something that could be related to super intimate experiences and traumas, like security questions about my childhood and stuff. That's the first line I would go first. And yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
Addresses.
Yeah, that's a really lovely answer. Thank you.
So, thanks for the questions.
Yeah, all right. So, if you enjoyed this session, you can feel free to use that YouTube like and subscribe button. That will notify you when future talks, including ones following this one, are live, as well as future iterations of ID24. And speaking of future and current iterations, Inclusive Design 24 is brought to you because of our supporters, Barrier Break, Intopia, Infoaxia, Tetralogical, Intuit, Adrian Roselli LLC, Assistive Labs, the Law Office of Laney Feingold, Skyscanner, and Vispero. We'll be back on the hour with our next session. Hope to see you then. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.